Hey everybody, you know if it's Wednesday, it's blockchain day. So welcome to Blockchain Chat. We are Black Blockchain Consultants and we are all about the business of blockchain. This is going to be a $3.1 trillion industry and we are here to help you get blockchain jobs, start blockchain-based businesses, invest in a blockchain, whether you're investing time or money in a project, and ultimately gain wealth, generational wealth from this $3.1 trillion industry. So we want to welcome everyone today. I realized in my promo for this that it was a little bit misleading and confusing, so I apologize. I made it sound like Gavin Woods was going to be here. That would have been a huge win. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant that we were going to talk about him. Not that we were going to talk to him, but who knows? He may discover this and reach out. Gavin Woods, if you see this and you reach out to us, I'm at info@blackblockchainconsultants.com. We will get you right on. So you want to come, you want to talk to 150 Black people about blockchain, what you're doing, diversify the blockchain. Yes. All righty then. So that's my plug for Mr. Gavin here. But we are going to talk about him and his Polkadot blockchain, which came across my feed, and I thought it was very interesting. And also it goes into the book club that we've been doing within the inner circle around the blockchain. Eric, do you have that book nearby?
I do. I have it right here. There you go.
Yes, The Real Business of Blockchain. So we are going to.
Felicia put hers up there too.
Mine is like on the other side of the screen here, so I can get to mine. But see, we got our blockchain nerds over here. So
the Bible.
Right.
So we are going to talk about that today. We are going to talk to our special guest, Mr. Jamari Peterson, who came and visited us. It's probably been about 8 or 9 months now, and he is dealing with predatory lending and using the blockchain to help fight that. And we as Black people know that our people struggle with the subprime, targeting and all of that stuff. So when I heard what he was doing, I was completely on board with him and, want to support what he's doing. So glad he's here tonight. We have a few other announcements. The first is that the fourth Monday of this month, which is June 22nd, if you're an Inner Circle member, we are having Brent Gray come on to talk about government contracts. And she's going to talk to us about how to get government contracts. She is one of our certified blockchain professionals. So she also will most likely come to us with some ideas of what's happening within the blockchain space and government contracts and all of those things as well. So there's a lot of money floating around within the government and blockchain. So we're going to talk about that as an inner circle. We also have a special announcement. Black Blockchain Consultants is having its annual conference, and I'm going to put that in quotes, annual conference. I think it's February 17th and 18th of 2021 in Los Angeles. It's that Friday and Saturday. So mark your calendars now. It is, February 19th and 20th. Sorry. 20th. February 19th and 20th of 2021. BBC is going to be in Los Angeles. We have spoken with Nadja Roberts, and she has opened up her crypto, what is it called? Crypto, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't write it down before we got on here. But she's opened her first crypto plug. Yes, yeah. Crypto plug to us. I'm telling you right now, we're capping it at about 25 to 30 people. This is going to be very low key. It's going to be strategy sessions, whiteboarding, going in deep, talking about the technology. This is not any kind of get rich for us. This is really a chance for us to all hop on a plane, all get together, see each other, and go deep with regards to how do we make money from this $3.1 trillion industry. So if you want to mark your calendars right now, February 19th and 20th of 2021, we will be in Los Angeles, getting together. And because we don't have break-even points or anything like that, because Naja is gifting us her facility, unless there's something else, act of God, that happens, Cherie's going to be there. Okay, and the rest of us will hopefully be there too. So with that, I want to have us kind of go around, introduce ourselves. I'm going to start off with Talisha. Introduce yourself and anything else you have to say to the family tonight.
I'm Talisha Shine. I am the VP of Blockchain Consortium International and also an Inner Circle member here. Yes, I know. I'm like waiting for this Naja thing. That sounds great. Hopefully, I can't plan that far ahead. I have a rising senior, so we'll see what all that happens. So we're looking forward to this conversation this evening, and it's great to see you, Jamari, since I haven't seen you in forever. I talk to you so often. It's like I do see you, but it's really not. So it's nice to see you this evening, and thank everybody for coming and joining us this evening.
Great. Eric?
Yes, hi everybody. Eric Spence, lover of all things blockchain, President Blockchain Consortium International. I absolutely love the blockchain application of tokenization of assets. I believe that's going to be a transformative technology when it's applied as a use case just across our world. I'm really happy to have Jamari here, and excited to have him on the panel along with all the lovely ladies here at the blockchain, and looking forward to this discussion.
Great. Tawana?
Hi, my name is Tawana Rivers, the Chief Operating Officer at Blockchain Consortium International, and super excited about tonight's conversation because we all know that interoperability is the start, in my opinion anyway, to that mass adoption, right? People being able to see how they can utilize it and see it fitting in all of the different parts of their lives. So this is an exciting. And I did think Gavin was joining us. I was like, oh, Cherie had another surprise for us because you're always surprising us with things. I said, oh, she saved this one.
I'm good, but I'm not quite that good yet. So, and our special guest, Jamari Peterson, introduce yourself, tell us anything that we should know, and tell us also about the projects you're working on, where you are in the process and how we can help you as well. Take, let's say 3 to 5 minutes and really tell us what you're doing and what you're up to.
Okay, well, for those who don't know, my name is Jamari. I tell people a good way to remember that is Jamari going safari in his Ferrari. Jamari, it felt a little bit, not a lot. I actually entered this space initially because I was trying to figure out the cryptocurrency and blockchain related space, because I was trying to figure out a way of doing decentralized voting, or mobile-based voting. I can't believe in this concept of liquid democracies and informed democracies. So I was trying to figure out how to do that. Ended up reaching out to some cryptographers, reached out to David Chom, who was one of the original cryptographers, cyberpunk related people who became the foundation of Bitcoin and other work that exists now. And he mentioned using blockchain technology. I ended up trying to delve into the current technologies that they implemented, which was Ethereum, because it was trying to be a world computer at the time. And I started looking at, is this viable for my purposes? I saw that there was an issue with long-term quantum resistant properties because you use elliptical key cryptography. So I ended up co-founding a project called the Quantum Resistant Ledger. We raised about $4 million. I was bought out by my partners at about $100 million valuation, when network about $100 million valuation. And then since then, I've been working on protocol development mostly. So I started working on the Digital Reserve, which was meant to be a micro lending project to kind of eliminate payday loans and also predatory lending. And that was a proof of stake based system that used the capital that was captured in the process of validating transactions and minting new coins to actually provide the liquidity pool for lending. So I designed that protocol, was working on building that out, had some stops and starts. And I was originally trying to build on Cosmos at one point, but because of their continual progress, their dependencies kept breaking. So that was kind of interrupting my ability to use Python at the time for their network, because I think they mostly use the Go language. So most recently, I've been doing consulting for this company called Archias. Can't talk about what they do, but I can tell you what I do for them, which is I develop out their distributed ledger implementations, particularly around a decentralized autonomous organization. And my most recent work had me looking at different networks around interoperability. And I'm also building out a gaming studio called Finite Games, which is really building out hyper casual esports gaming and the infrastructure for interoperability of in-game assets, but between games, but really starting with our own IP to really build out the infrastructure and also in-game sponsorship of the digital assets that we create as NFTs, non-fungible tokens. And then interoperability matters a lot for us in that space as well. So really been keeping my eye on what Polkadot is doing and Cosmos, because they actually have a lot of similarities. Polkadot actually, I think, uses some of the underlying Tendermint functionality, I think, that Cosmos built out. So.
Great, fantastic.
Jamari, you're such a slacker, man, but anyway, we'll go ahead.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, we have Richard on Facebook who's saying interesting gaming, and Maurice is here talking about the LA Big City of Dreams. So yeah, and then we have people in here in Zoom as well. So you know, all of your projects always sound super exciting. And you know, is there anything that you need in terms of us, in terms of the Black Blockchain Consultants community to help push you forward?
Oh, for me? Oh,
yeah,
so yeah. Funny.
We want to support you. Yeah.
So the thing I'm working on most actively is probably the infrastructure for the Finite Games company. So I've been trying to pull in more Unity developers for the front end, and also some support on the Solidity contracts. Because even though I'm not actually using Ethereum, I'm using Tron right now.
Okay.
More so because they have more funding on that side of the world. No matter how you might feel about Tron, as they do have more funding. So therefore, I'm building on their network, and kind of the tooling isn't as robust necessarily as what is in Ethereum, but there is a lot of parallels between the two because they have the same core underlying architecture. So somebody with the Solidity experience would be helpful, especially since I don't care about revenue sharing, equity sharing, whatever you want to do. I'm up to all those alternative forms of financing in this space. And yeah, no, that's the most relevant thing. And if people want to help to design DAOs, I mean, I know there's a group that's working on trying to create a DAO specific consulting group around Aragon. So they need support, and I'm kind of helping out with them a little bit. So
cool. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about interoperability tonight and what's happening there? And I have an article. It's a short article. I'm looking forward to getting everybody's feedback with regards to that. Also hearing some of the things that you're hearing through the grapevine with regards to interoperability. And if we have more time, then I also have the Polkadot website up as well. But I have a feeling with this specific group, we won't need the extra space. Like we'll look at the article and you guys will fill it in. So I'm going to share my screen here really quickly. And this was from Yahoo Finance a few days ago in regards to Gavin Wood. So he is an OG in the game. He's the co-founder and chief technology officer of Ethereum, or at least he was. He's left Ethereum. He's got a doctorate in computer science, and let's see here, when Bitcoin began to make headlines, it was with the computer visualization of music in which he was interested. So he connected with Vitalik Buterin. He became the CTO, responsible for delivering the technology Ethereum virtual machine, and Wood also conceived of Solidity. So when we talk about, you know, high up in the food chain, he is definitely high up there. He left some years back and he started something called Polkadot, which is looking to achieve the equivalent of basically doing interoperability. So let me go down here to where I have it highlighted. Having coined the term Web 3.0, otherwise known as the decentralized web, Dr. Wood soon found the Web3 foundation to support the development of the technologies necessary to achieve his vision. As Ethereum 2.0 research dragged on, Wood and his core development team determined that building a protocol to connect blockchains was a critical missing link in the Web 3.0 tech stack. If blockchain tech was going to provide the trust layer for a new open internet without the powerful authorities like Google and Facebook, who we currently trust with many of our interactions online, they were going to have to be able to communicate and scale. The end result is Polkadot, a sharded protocol that enables blockchain networks to operate together seamlessly. So some of the problems, it seems, however, that Polkadot genuinely does provide innovative answers to many issues, like providing true interoperability by enabling cross-blockchain transfers of any type of data or asset, not just tokens like existing blockchain interoperability solutions. So that was actually what kind of caught my eye, was the fact that they want to transfer any kind of data or asset. Polkadot will also make blockchain innovation faster and easier. Developers can create a custom blockchain in minutes. It is described as forkless and future-proof, meaning networks can be upgraded and bugs can be fixed without hard forks while maintaining security for all. Chains connected to Polkadot are called parachains, which are united in their security but distinct when it comes to their local governance and operations. So that was the end of what I had highlighted here. I think it says here story continues, but I think that was what I had. So yeah. Let's start with Talisha. Always, oh, and unmute yourself. Yes.
Where would you like me to begin? I guess.
I want you to do what you usually do. You usually prop it up and then you usually tear it down.
I don't do that. I don't do that.
You definitely do that.
The pros and the cons. That's every protocol has it. So with the sharded protocol, that's very nice. So when we're talking about interoperability, I think, again, we have to establish the baseline. What does that mean? They can have different hashing, different consensus algorithms, and they can even have different communities that they serve, but they're using some base level variables that get them to interconnect. So at the highest level of that protocol, that means that they have something that allows them to validate and then to go into and actually transition into each of those other ecosystems. So in essence, that's great for all of interoperability. That's all what we need. And the interchanging of that data is the biggest part. And I think that's I'm not sure of how they do that yet. Like I said, I get what they're trying to do. But again, when we're talking about token to token exchange and data asset change, we have, just how things are made. Your protocol, when you go somewhere and you have a pin that's this way, or you have alphanumeric this way, all of those things have a set kind of requirement, and then you also have to change that. So sometimes it's actually transferred differently in different fields, even if it's the same actual, like your social security number may be something else, and it has a different number, has a personal key in any different database. So we're looking at that also going kind of through this. But so when we have a sharded perspective here, this is where that takes into consideration that it's future proof. And I did like that part where nobody is holding all of the code. Each node has snippets. And so with that kind of partition, just like if you would partition a drive, not everything is held on that. You can kind of mirror it. You can do something else on this side. Nothing is holding all of it. So that does make that flexibility. And that's the key part, I think, of why their protocol will be successful, is that it has that component piece where it can grow and be very agile. And that's really what technology is truly trying to achieve, is the agility to maneuver and to be able to process things, not from a centralized state, also from the decentralization of just all blockchain. But that's also a concept that everybody wants to use. Like, we need to be able to move very quickly in and out of systems that may or may not be compatible.
Yeah, and it seemed like that was the purpose of it, that they were trying to figure out a way to not have the power all lie in the hands of Facebook and Google or big companies, not have it all lie in like even one central protocol. like they specifically said in the article that they could bring the protocols together when they need to bring them together, but also keep the governance separate when they need to do that as well.
So that's the consensus.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like with Facebook and that, they're really just the data source. And I think that's where we have to be very careful about who the entity is. The data is housed at Facebook. So even if you have a very decentralized backend, if you have a centralized data source, it doesn't matter. And so you have to be very conscientious of, we're looking at multiple data sources coming into multiple ecosystems and backend protocols in order to be processed succinctly and cross those lines. So if, like I said, if I'm trying to get, I'm going to use health records, of course, I want some of my health records to go to my PCP, but now I have to get an MRI. I want some of that, and maybe their system is totally different, but I do need some basic information to be translated over there, like my insurance information, my demographics, but I don't need them to see that full record. So at the highest level, there has to be some kind of key factors that give them that credibility, and also the ability to change the data that they need to ensure that they can process that and pick that up and say, yes, I validate that you are who you are, and now I can perform whatever service I need. So that, like I said, the data sources are very much incumbent also, as well as the protocols that are processing the data.
Right. And Talisha, I mean, all of that happens, and it has to be a smooth transition, right? So like everyone has to get their piece of that easily accessible and ease of use. And when you think of the end user, it has to be easily understandable and all of those things.
Well, it has to be, again, you're talking about the transaction speed. Like when I make that call, how does it happen? Where do I have to go to instantly get that? Specifically, if we're looking at healthcare records, maybe I need some information right now. And we also have to determine, again, the exchange. So that decoupling of the information. What part do I get? Because it's coming as a packet. I got to unpack it. Then I got to say, I can't use that part. I can only use this part. And so where all that happens, and that becomes the issue too, that speed, availability, and viability, and again, making that transaction work and deciphering it correctly, all have to come into play in lightning speed time.
Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jamari.
I think that's the interesting thing though about the interoperability component, is because there's really, I think there's only three routes or three main ways that people have been doing interoperability. One is the atomic swaps, which is basically where we're both doing a signature simultaneously, and we have a smart contract between us that has to come into agreement for us to release the funds on both sides. Then you have what I think the parachains is, which I think is more like a relay thing, where basically they're basically holding a limited validation contract on the other network that can validate transactions from somewhere else. So it's kind of like on Ethereum, I'm writing a smart contract that can understand the headers of a Bitcoin, and then by connecting those, I can now process Bitcoin transactions on Ethereum because I wrote a validation smart contract for Bitcoin. That's, I think, what they're using for the paratrains, which is much faster because it's more like you're running a light node. Where atomic swaps is a little bit slower because you worry about confirmation between the two parts and waiting until those come into sync. And then the third way, which you're not using, but I think which is closer to what Ripple and Interledger uses, which is more notary schemes, which is basically some almost trusted party is signing off on the transaction and the movement between these areas. So I think the only time you get that speed is when you're talking about the being able to validate other transactions within your existing chain, which is what the bulk of what Polkadot is trying to do. But they do also have parts that if people aren't fitting into their paradigm, then there is still, I think, the atomic swap methodology that people are using. They're trying to push that process out a little bit further and create a parachain version that sits between that atomic swap, so people can hopefully eventually move closer to existing within the Polkadot environment. That's my understanding, at least, of how it operates.
Yeah, and that there's a translation piece, and that's what they're trying to do. So if they don't have the requisite variables at that level, at the subcontract level, they do what they consider a translation, a high-level translation, where they're doing it between the two. So again, it has a few more hops to go to. It has to go to that smart contract validation protocol first, validate them, and then get stuck with the things that they need before they're actually processed. So there's taking away and putting on extra stuff. Yes. And you got to make sure those things work and they are correct. So you're adding, a layer of kind of that's a vulnerability if you don't add the correct information, or if you don't, or you let some information go that shouldn't have gone. So that's where the vulnerabilities come in, and that's not me tearing it down. That's just you point out, like the vulnerability, and the more times I have to touch it and manipulate the data, the more I have a chance of harming it.
Yeah, which I mean is not just in blockchain. That's like in everything.
Anywhere.
The more hands that touch it, the greater chance it has of not giving you whatever result you're looking for. So I do know that speed is going to be very important within blockchain acceptance and with blockchain going mainstream. I didn't see in this specific article how long they think, until this is going to be really up and operational. But what do you think, either one of you, Jamari or Talisha, with regards to any kind of time frames?
I think the mainnet is actually out. Because I'm pretty sure the mainnet's out, and I keep getting messages about people about exchanges holding dots, and dots is what Polkadot does, and talk about for their staking, because that's where the other issue comes in. Like, we have staking systems, and if everybody's using a custodial situation where an exchange is holding their dots or their stake, they're actually stepping up as the main force of deciding almost that governance of the network in place of the user, because you're not taking custodianship of your own staking process. I think that's pretty much how Steemit, I think, got taken over. It's because the exchanges had all the weight, even though it might belong to other people. So I'm pretty sure it's out, because I keep getting messages.
Okay.
I think it's the operability portion of its own. Like, again, it has to show its own solvency. And yes, dots, and we talked about proof of stake last week. So we know how, again, the more people hold those there and leave that, the token available, that grows. So right now they're doing a large push for people to, basically participate in the staking process right now. So that in itself is taking its own. But as for, again, how everybody uses it, it comes down to what you always say. There's going to have to be a very strong use case, and that use case is going to have to be very demonstrative. And at that point, it will just pick up, and usually that in itself will be the disruptor, or at least show you a path of use, and that will get people very excited. At this point, it's still kind of disparate at this moment. People are like, oh, okay, and you're waiting to see what's going to happen, how this transfer. And then again, the proof of stake is not something that you see automatically. It does require time. So they're using all of those mechanisms together. So I would say several years at this point. They may pick up some steam sooner or later, who knows, but that one use case can push it to really high capacity very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so go ahead, either one of you. I'm going to write down, because I have something important to say and I don't want to forget.
Listen, this is incredibly theoretical as I'm saying this, but at the same time, everything starts with some sort of
everything is theory until you prove
it. Until it happens. Okay, so as far as and I talked about a little bit earlier, just being a big proponent of just tokenization of assets, and that's all assets. That's not just physical assets. That's intellectual property. That's royalty streams. Anything you could possibly imagine. Now, I say this is really theoretical, but why I just look at interoperability being so important is it allows us to, especially when it comes down to tokenized assets, to be able to do things that previously would be unheard of, and that would be one asset that becomes tokenized now. It's on the blockchain, being used and utilized in a purpose that no one could have ever thought possible that they would ever do. I mean, for instance, like if someone had a tokenized portion of art, and then on the other side, they want to use a portion of those tokens to then pay their electric bill, and I know that sounds really wild and theoretical, but at the same time, in order for that to happen, we would need those bridges to be built. And interoperability is just a primary component in order for that kind of thing to happen.
I agree. I think, again, the best example of this is Jamari's project with Infinity Games. Like, gaming has every conceivable aspect to it with all the user cases built inside of it. You need sometimes, I have a gamer in my household, so I hear this every moment. Like, it would be so nice if I could just get that from this and use it and leverage it. Games are becoming very much interoperative. You're swapping characters, you're using different things, you're leveraging even sometimes something as ubiquitous as your strength. You build up so much strength in a game and you want to now transfer that to a concurrent game. How does that work? Where does that fit? And that before you would just be like, I have to play that game until I get to that. Now there is that ability to kind of maneuver through. And that's why I think your project is so amazing. And I follow it like, I like look every day to see what you're doing because I'm so excited. But I think that's the strongest use case where you'll see that kind of you're taking one thing and you're leveraging it in a way that could never have been conceptualized before. And now it can actually become more tangible. Before we just thought a game is a game, you just get your little kudos and your bragging rights. Now there's a way to substantively be rewarded for your effort by playing that game.
Absolutely. Yeah, funny enough, when you said, like the one I tell people about, the existing example, it's a centralized example, pure, but Pokemon actually is a good example of that interoperability, because basically between their games, they've continued to build the ability to move your progress and your characters that you gain in one game to the next one. So people who play the mobile version of Pokemon Go, walking around, can move it into Pokemon Pikachu, and they can move it from Pokemon Pikachu into the now Pokemon Shield games. And it's that type of thing, I think, where at least on the gaming side of interoperability, where people want to go. So if somebody's playing Fortnite, like and they earn a skin, be able to move that skin from Fortnite into Call of Duty. But then you have to have some normalization factor in between. It's like, how do you modify assets from one thing to fit into the space of another one? And that's where I think the interoperability network is going to come in. Is like they provide a platform for moving one asset to another, but you're still going to sometimes need a processor of some sort that can normalize what that means into a real world setting. So, and as those bridges are being built, I think that the value is going to come. And it's not until I think networks start exceeding the capacity and pushing really move outside of just the cryptocurrency, blockchain specific areas, but into the general main purpose use of people. Like this network can't handle this many transactions and they're trying to send remittance payments. So therefore, an interoperable layer is necessary so we can spread out the brunt and the weight of these transactions that are happening between the different players. And then that's where that occurs. When you talk about art, for example, like, okay, well, we have so many of these art transactions, so much weight attached to it, because they might be heavier, they might have more data oriented, because they're actually trying to move the entire image. But that's too costly to do inside Ethereum. So there's a network that might be designed that's actually for moving like actual like files. Well, interoperability layer might provide them the basis of being able to move the ownership or certain permissions related to that data into other places, which is kind of, once again, something I'm working on as well.
That choice. And once you have users from a consumer standpoint, the best thing you can do for a consumer is give them choices. So if it says, I want to shop at this place versus this place, I like this one better than I like this one. If you give them a chance to do their processing that way, then you have truly interoperability, because it doesn't matter. It all happens at the same aspect. Now it's just like, this one is cheaper, or this one is faster because I'm now sending it only down the street, where I have to now send one across the country. You'll have that way. So when you have selection, and I think that's why it's important not to be the best at anything, it's just to be there. It's to actually be a part of the ecosystem, because as long as the ecosystem grows, more people come, because people just like choice. And if they just see it, they may not even know what it means, but it's like, oh, if I get A or I get B, the choice just makes them seem like they want to participate, and that will spawn the adoption.
Agreed.
Yeah. No. And on that,
So let's dig deeper into that, because so it doesn't have to be perfect like in the very beginning, but there will come a point where people will, say, is this making my life easier? Is it, making my life better? Or is the government mandating? I mean, outside of the government mandating, us to have this, I think that people like the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So for mass adoption's sake, at least, there does have to be a certain ease of use, a certain familiarity with it, et cetera. And then you do get the strongest survive at the end of the day, which goes then to my point, which is this Gavin Wood. I know he's stupid rich, right? This is Black Blockchain Consultants. We talk about things from our point of view. So one of the things that locks us out as a people, and I have no cure for it or anything like that, it's just an observation, is you have these people that are able to wait a decade before something has a return on investment. They're able to work on it full time, pull a staff in full time. There was just this company, Quibi, something like that, sort of a Meg Whitman and somebody else, $2 billion they raised, and they've got a non-functioning product, and believe it or not, Anthony Pompliano was the one I never heard of this company until he talked about it. And he's like, what company do you know that could do that could take all that money and not have a functioning product or a product that anybody wants? And I'm like, and then add that to being Black, and no, we have to have something that's gonna produce, right? But I do think that's a part of what we're seeing as well, is kind of the most well-funded with product market fit will survive in this blockchain space, which is why looking back at Google and Facebook and those types of companies is important, because they can outlast, the small guy. We can have a conversation about it. Yeah.
How's Amazon structure?
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, especially when you bring up the whole Quibi thing, kind of in retrospect, I guess, to blockchain companies, is, that is a very valid point, that, these companies that are really heavily capitalized, they have a lot of runway. But it's interesting too, because at the same time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they had like $1.6 billion they had raised and didn't have a functional product. And it kind of, in a way, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who's one of the founders of DreamWorks, is also one of the founders of Quibi. But then you kind of see that almost like it worked against them. I know it doesn't have anything to do with interoperability, but that's really been a strange observation.
It does.
Yeah, it's like they had, it's almost like they had all day to, work on it, so they never got to it. They never launched. I mean, I don't know,
Not hungry, because they're not hungry enough, maybe. Some of that drive.
It's what you are building. And I think that's another thing. All of the companies that you reference built to their customer. It's not just to build a product just for the building of the product's sake. You have to have a value-added service. Consumers are very sophisticated now. They want what they want, and they want it the way. And if you just keep on building something and you're like, oh, I'm just going to give them this, and you've never taken into consideration of what they want, they'll tell you instantly by not purchasing it or telling you how horrible it is. So now the trick is to really engage your consumer early on. They want cross, and this is again talking about interoperability. They do want to go from their phone to their laptop to their television. Mm-hmm. They want that interoperability, and they want that seamless. Mm-hmm. If I talk to you, I had a customer experience on my phone and I texted you, I want that person, if I call them, to know that I texted. Like, see, I texted here. All of that has to be managed. Mm-hmm. And with that building of these products now, specifically these back end infrastructures, they have to have that as their core. And you're building something from a front end down is not what we're doing anymore. We can't do that at this point because it's no longer viable. People don't really care. They want to see, like, how does this work? And do I have that cross? Because instantly when you don't, they'll shut it down. They'll say, it didn't work for me. and it's not broken. It just wasn't built with that intent. So I think some of this has to really, when you think about building a product, that is why sometimes it's the participation in the ecosystem. You have to really stress test it. You really have to get that customer and consumer buy-in very early on to make sure that it's viable, and then build and scale.
So then let me, if I may, let me interject here, because we know we are all about the business of blockchain as well. So within Talicia's response, she has mentioned, she didn't really mention it, but I'm going to bring it full circle for everybody. We often talk about the business analyst here. Like that job that Talicia just talked about, going out, talking to the customers, that's either a business analyst job or a product manager job. And these jobs are out there. These businesses are out there as well. UX, user experience, is another thing. We got to bring Bettina Justinian back to talk about UX again for all of our new people. But that's a huge career opportunity, and these blockchain companies are going to need this. Another one that we haven't mentioned on here before, but in my research, I came across this as well, and that is the entrepreneurial salesperson. So a traditional salesperson is just transactional, right? You want to buy a car, you go to the car lot, you know, switch happens, right? Get money, you know, for your car. An entrepreneurial salesperson is usually the first or second salesperson that's brought into smaller companies like these tech companies to talk to, you know, users, figure out what they want, but also sell them, so they do a little bit of revenue exchange and also get them on board and get feedback from those initial customers and help make the product better. It's called an entrepreneurial salesperson. Again, these are jobs that are available, and these are businesses that you could start, and you could represent various companies, you know, within the blockchain space. So I'm always a fan of kind of bringing it back to how people can, you know, find careers or businesses they can start, you know, small service businesses. And, you know, I'm gonna plug my niece in here. My niece Richardson is the head of our thought leadership group. So if you were a member, talk to my niece, because she is setting up the thought leadership group. And that way it could really push you out there as the thought leader in whatever niche or major that you're deciding. So I just want to mention that. I'll open it up to everybody else.
I mean, on the business opportunity side, I definitely just want to mention again the DAO consultancy component of things, decentralized autonomous organizations. As people are continuing to build out those frameworks, making sure that we're present, involved in those conversations about how they function, and be able to make them, because they're trying to make the process easier, but they still going to need people who understand what the costs and benefits are. What the trade-offs between different design parameters are, that there's going to be a lot of value, because that's going to where business operations is going to go. A lot of it, as that moves to become automated, these are going to be one of the methodologies that people probably leverage in the future. So I definitely think that's the area. And absolutely on the interoperability stuff, specifically what we're talking about, like because these people raise a bunch of funding, that they typically have a little bit of funding for people who want to build on their protocol, a new chain or connectivity or whatnot. So positioning yourself to be part of that conversation is an opportunity that's continually open. And I did have a random thought when you talk about the entrepreneurial salesperson, because I was, in my mind, I was thinking it was a person that like essentially does sales for a bunch of companies simultaneously, and just kind of
that's what I thought she was talking about.
As they meet people, like, oh yeah, this is what you want. Oh, but
then they got it.
Yeah, that's a reseller. So that's a huge industry too. Yeah. That's a reseller. Yes. Yeah, but there are some people. So some salespeople like to have, you know, work with established companies, Microsoft, Oracle, etc. Then there are other salespeople who like to get in with the small companies that have no infrastructure and really kind of help them finish off the product you know, and have real relationships one-on-one with those initial users. So yeah, so there's a huge spectrum with entrepreneurial sales.
I was just thinking, the climate we're in is all around us, right? So I'm blackity black these days, right? I'm buying black, I'm eating black, I'm getting black construction work. It's like, I'm all things black these days. And I feel like we can't have this interoperability conversation without talking about like a block interop and Gina Malik and what she's doing in the healthcare space. Like that deserves a portion of this conversation. I mean, I know she's coming, she's spoken to us, she shared a project with us. How does she fit in this equation? And I know, Talisha, healthcare is that's your lane, but how does she fit here?
Truly, just by participating again in the ecosystem. She has built something that has the viability that can do that translation, can be those, processed from different multiple data sources. All of that kind of comes together very well. It's just, again, you have to have participants. And this is, again, going full circle to, you have to have somebody that's going to use it. You can build it, but that doesn't mean they come. And with that, again, you have regulations specifically with healthcare. As we all know, there's some HIPAA compliancy and some other aspects to it. But now that we've seen specific COVID has raised this as that interoperability is necessary. Now, before where it was a nice to have, now it has shot straight to the top of, this was actually a critical thing where it all fell apart because they couldn't get out of the silos. So this is where the interoperability becomes a higher priority now when you have value data. And that's where we're going. So when we have this discussion about what things we're changing, what are the things we are moving from just the true cryptocurrency to those data assets, which are truly the most important thing. We always talk about data being the true gold. That's where it happens. And that data, wherever it sits and whatever it's doing, that's where the merging is. And this is where our companies specifically can really thrive, because you don't need a whole lot. You could either be a good data provider, a strong data provider that you just kind of hold that data and make sure that it's correct and viable. And that comes with a whole host of jobs. There's a whole QA, quality assurance on one side, HR, just to make sure that they have the right people there, having a call center. I mean, there's so many things built around the management of data that all goes into these protocols don't work without the data. So I would say there's a long runway of front end before you even get to the usage of these. So that's where I think we kind of myopically look at just the protocol itself. The protocol needs things to work around it, because that's where the business is. It's just a piece of tech. Without everything else, that infrastructure, it's just sitting there waiting for something to interact with it.
Wow. I mean, that's it. I mean, that makes
a good summary, wasn't it?
Yeah, no. I didn't know we just to sit with that. That's it. I mean, that's it. And Talisha, it's something you said was really interesting, and that was the fact of how something went from a nice to have to a necessity, and that happened because we had a macro change in our external climate that happened, and that's funny. And listen, I'm just going to. Not to belabor the point, but just with Quibi, just because the whole thing has been really interesting to me. And also, full disclosure too, as a music publisher, we were kind of doing some things with them also. So it's kind of funny to see it all kind of the way it was. But one of the things with that is, they were set up because, all of those of us who have Netflix or whatever we now Netflix shows are, but Quibi was set up to splice that content down to only 10-minute bites, because they felt that everyone's on the go. No one has time to sit in front of the TV or the computer or their phone and watch a full movie or a full series for an entire time. And so that's what it was set up for. But what happened? COVID. No, we do have the time now.
A whole lot of time.
And that crushed them. like they had a projected amount of numbers that they thought that they were going to achieve in this last quarter, but because of that, and because of everyone going 10 minutes, no, I'm going to go watch a movie for the entire time. Like that crushed their whole subscriptions.
I think that talks about sustainability. We talk about this a lot of times. Building businesses is great and wonderful, but you got to build a business with forethought and sustainability aspects. So that's where, again, the interoperability aspect is how quickly can you move? How quickly can you pivot from one to another? Like I said, you can't just swap up one day and say, we're changing the proof of concept to, proof of work, going from proof, that we can't do all of that. So now you have to feel and make sure you have viable, either you've created an ecosystem that you can participate in the manner in which you can, or you have the ability to shift to remain sustainable. And that comes through those things where you now just can't say this works and this is going to work in perpetuity. That no longer exists. And we kind of got crushed. We knew that there was I always say that knowledge of, we know, but it's okay. It's like your car. It's making a whole lot of noise. It's smoking, but you're still driving. You still, it's okay. It shutters. The door doesn't walk. You got a nap. All of that. You only take action when you on the side of the road, cussing and fussing and calling somebody to come and pick you up. Because now you're like, my car broke down. It's been broke down. That thing was been broke. It was broke when you got into it, but you just rode it until the wheels fell off. That's what we've been doing. And unfortunately, it took the pandemic to truly put you on the side of the road and say, you can't move now. And that inhibited a whole lot of data flow and a whole lot of business functionality, because they said, once you don't have the data, you don't have a business. You just have a nice tech sitting there going, we can't do anything. You don't have the whole structure. And that's the thing. We can't piece part this anymore. Interoperability is now a necessity because we just can't work in silos. We've proven that over and over. And now we can't go back.
Right. Well, nobody had COVID in their business plan. Y'all know I write business plans for a living. Nobody. So what Talisha said about agility, the companies that made it, so the companies in the last recession that made it had very little debt. So, they were able to be agile because they didn't have a lot of financial obligations. That's large companies and small companies, right? Now I think that the companies that are making it are they're financially flexible and they're also agile as well. So we saw Vanessa Braxton, for example, shout out to Black Mama Tea and Cafe. She went from being a vodka manufacturer and a tea manufacturer to being a hand sanitizer manufacturer. So all of a sudden, at least this is my point of view, she may have been brilliant enough to start it like this. She went from being a manufacturer of a specific product to being a manufacturer of any product that's needed at the time that it's needed, right?
And here's the key. She owns the manufacturing plant.
Yes.
That is her silver bullet, right? She didn't have to go to someone else and say, by the way, can we change the product? Can you reconfigure everything? It's her manufacturing plant.
Ownership, hashtag ownership. 10K project. I'm going to plug in there. If you're not a member.
That is how you truly gain interoperability. If you own it, you get to pivot in the manner in which you want and then take on the viable partnerships at will.
Yes.
And that truly will be your saving. Great.
Which is why with this whole thing with Polkadot and Gavin Wood, he really becomes the linchpin. And he or she who is the linchpin, it's like I had a business mentor tell me it's like being the toll in the toll road. Nobody gets through the other side without paying you their nickel, right? And he said to me, Cherie, you want to start businesses where you're the toll, and that way, no matter if you're coming east or going west, somebody's going to give you their nickel to go through, and you multiply it times X many times. So those are some just business lessons that I've learned over the years. Well, we have 2 minutes left before we are going to leave for the evening. I want to remind everybody, February 19th and 20th of 2021, Los Angeles, Naja Roberts has given us her location. So we are having about 25, maximum 30 of us getting together to talk about blockchain, strategize, et cetera, et cetera. Mark your calendars now. It is going to be great. We are going to have some great topics, but it's not going to be one of those super structured conferences. We don't want to do that. We want to do
Jeffrey's been waiting for us to talk about the West is the best.
I knew he was going to be
Oh my goodness. So yes, we are coming to the West Coast officially, February 19th and 20th of 2021. So please mark your calendars. Also, June 22nd, next Monday, we are having Brent Gray come on at 7:30, I think is the time, for our Inner Circle meeting to talk about getting government contracts. Getting government contracts next Monday, the 22nd. You must be an Inner Circle member. If you are not an Inner Circle member and you want to be, I'm so glad you asked how you can do that. You can come to blackblockchainconsultants.com, click on the membership button, and we actually have membership and the Blockchain 101 course as a bundle for you so that you can get the education that you need and take advantage of the membership. So with that, I'm going to give my lovely crew here any final words. So let's start with Eric. Final words.
No, just once again, I'm going to say this. This technology to me is one of the most exciting just because of the versatile possibilities that are just out there. It allows you to take your mind and to apply it into this technology and create something. I mean, this is going to be transformative, not just for you as an individual, but just for the community at large. So the more of us, the better, because I really want to, just have us be well represented in this space.
All right, Tawana?
Yeah, as an end user, because I'm the least tech person here, but as an end user, I'm excited about this because just the possibility of life being easier, right? With as busy as we all are, and that's not changing for anyone, right? People are getting involved in more things, and you just need life to be easier and less stressful. And that's what interoperability means to me. I mean, it allows me to go through life just a little less stressed, right? And to have some more things at my hand, just easily accessible. So as I'm excited about this. I mean, again, like Eric said, everything about blockchain excites me though, right? So I'm not surprised I'm excited about this, but this piece is big because you really get to think about how life is easier. Listening to Talicia's example about healthcare, I'm like, oh, yeah, that would be a big deal, right? Like all of it. So I hope all of the companies working on this initiative have great success, and I hope they can work together because it is about the ecosystem. So I hope they play nicely in the sandbox.
Alicia, final words?
I think one of the biggest things that for all businesses, since we talk about the business of blockchain, is customer experience and customer support are truly the differentiators. We've seen that now because we can all deliver the product. We can all go to the bookstore, or we could all click on Amazon. Everything is really about your experience. Mm-hmm. And interoperability is just that. It sounds like it truly is something of like, oh, it's a back-end thing. Truly, it's not. It is a business function that is basically interpreted through tech. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. If you think about it, and you're like, oh, what does that mean? It truly just means that I can cross platforms, cross protocols with ease and sufficiency and with consistent data return. Like that's what you're wanting. That's the ease that you're talking about, Mr. You want to be able to use your phone and then come home and turn on something and it's there. You don't have to, oh, I got to log in. I got to do all that. Those simple maneuvers are really what interoperability gives us. And that's where we're going to. And again, those big behemoth companies that need to be kind of desegregated and decentralized, this is where they can now just remain the data source in aspects, and then we can actually now correlate the data and have a more robust customer experience.
Yeah. So I came up with something new, guys. Okay. Because y'all know I'm the oracle around here. All right.
Indeed.
Okay. So, three-legged stool. This is my theory. Y'all can let me know what you think. Also, we can have the conversation in flux. So the three-legged stool that really, really will catapult blockchain and get us to the $3.1 trillion is, and these are the things that I think every one of us should be looking out for when they come together harmoniously. Interoperability, scalability, and that mainstream use case. I'll say that again. That's your three-legged stool. Interoperability, scalability, and that mainstream use case. When those three things happen, that is when we're going to be able to sit on the blockchain. And sitting on the blockchain is what? Making money, seeing more people use it. Your friends will be calling you, your family will be calling you, saying, hey, you've been talking about this blockchain thing for 3 years now, and now I'm ready to learn about it. What do I need to do? So when you're, looking at articles, I suggest you start getting Google alerts for all things blockchain, because that's how I get my news on blockchain, is the Google alerts. So, start looking for those three things, and being a true, not even just thought leader, but just a true participant in the industry. You are looking for the trends. And this is what we come to do every Wednesday, is talk about the trends in the industry. And I believe, I'm curious to hear what everyone else thinks. I believe that those are that's the three-legged stool we're looking for. So, yeah. All righty, well, everyone's shaking their heads, so I guess I could drop the mic. All righty then. Well, we will be back, Inner Circle members, on Monday. We'll be back in order to talk about getting government contracts. And other than that, for the rest of you, we'll be back on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.